Hello and welcome to the ShrubSMP Season 7. This is Episode 13. Alright, so we're over here at the Dark Castle location, and we are going to be spending a lot of time over here in the coming weeks as we now get started on the mega build, the big Dark Castle 7.0 location. And I'm over here now, down with the materials that we've been collecting from digging out the pit above the trial chamber. And as you can see, I'm wearing a mask as well as some little themed decorations because Halloween is approaching here in America, and by the time this video comes out, I believe we will have already had Halloween, and I actually didn't have anything planned to do fun and special, so we're opening today's episode just with the themed decorations. I want to head back to the storage, to the starter area, that is, and threw a couple jack-o'-lanterns there, but that's about all we got for the time being. One of the first things I want to do is to potentially gear up here, so as we take our drowned head off, we'll throw our armor back on. And now, let's talk about armor, because I have been wearing my diamond endgame armor here with all of the different enchantments on it, and it is now time. I have been digging out, as we can see in some of these chests over here, we've been starting to collect a lot of the Blackstone materials that are going to be required for the Dark Castle. As we all know, the Dark Castle is made out of a lot of Blackstone. And while I've been down there, I have also collected a decent amount of ancient debris, which means we shall be able to upgrade this diamond armor to netherite armor. And I think that's going to be one of the first things we do, because also while I've been down there gathering materials, I have been kind of raiding a bastion to collect all of this Blackstone, because that's what they're made out of, and it's easy to collect those resources. I found here in my valuables chest an enchanted Soul Speed 3 book. And it is one of the special enchantments that we need to finish up all of our enchantments. Is based on movement speed, actually. So what it does is it allows you to kind of run over soul sand in the nether to really have a speedy tunnel, and which is what we're definitely going to do to improve our nether tunnels when we get there. And that means that we have one more book that we're going to need to add on to our soul speed. And it is movement speed related, and it's really going to help. It's with crouching, and there is an enchantment called Swift Sneak, and we get that from the Deep Dark, which is someplace that we're going to have to still find and raid an ancient city so that we can sneak out one of those Swift Sneak books. That's going to have to come shortly, but hopefully if we can find some in our travels, we'll go ahead and finish off combining and upgrading our diamond armor to netherite. But when we get there, we'll do it. And in the meantime, it's time to head down into the nether, and we'll continue collecting some materials. Alright, so I'm down here in the nether, and just kind of looking off this platform, I'm not far from the nether hub. This actually is the bastion that I raided to when I first found it in episode 9 when we first got access to the nether, and I've been kind of coming back here to trim off the top of this thing. I've been slowly taking off all of the Blackstone here that I know we're going to need for the Dark Castle build, like I said, and we have just been kind of chipping away to fill up our chests to get started on at least putting an outline together. Now, one of the things that's not always the easiest is just getting started somewhere in a ginormous build, especially that I have planned compared to Dark Seasons of the past, which are usually fairly big. This one, with the amount of land and the amount that we have marked out in the desert above that trial chamber and the giant hole that we've been digging there, is certainly going to be a lot more than we can, hopefully not bite off more than we can chew, but we need all these resources to be able to accommodate it. And since I've been down here, it kind of made me realize, like, it is a kind of a difficult thing to decide where to start. And since we have all these materials and we're going to need so many more, there's going to be a lot of our storage needs. And I think that's going to be one of the first things we do. We may get to outlining it, and even starting it in today's episode is to start outlining the main storage system and exactly which mechanisms. I do want to do something a little different this season, that is, in terms of storage systems. I will certainly be using the traditional Impulse SV, the Impulse storage system sorter that I have used in almost every season, as many Minecrafters do. But there's some new cool mechanics that are going around the community since 1.21 has been released, and we probably want to incorporate some other things as well. And I'll decide how that goes as we move on. But yeah, and then when you start thinking about what you're going to build, and then you think about what you're going to need to build it, when we're talking storage system, most of it's blocks, but a lot of it's redstone, and when you're talking redstone, we also need some major components. Now, fortunately, most of the redstone components, now that we do have access to the nether down here, that involve quartz, we're going to be able to have plenty of quartz readily available. It's the iron that could potentially become the trouble, because as we know in storage systems, we're certainly going to need a lot of hoppers, and that means iron farm. And I have done a number of iron farms in past seasons as well. We're going to have to figure out maybe a new design, and that's going to have to come relatively early. I think this episode we'll continue to use iron that we already have, but maybe even in the next episode we'll start an industrial district in our Dark Castle location, or even as part of it, or somewhere in that giant pit. That may include something like an iron farm for sure, maybe a bamboo farm that we can start making an infinite wood source out of, so that we can make the chests that are needed for those hoppers. So you can see how getting started at your mega base location usually involves figuring out what you need and how you can get it, and then wrap those things all into the build and see how things go from there. So we're going to go ahead back to the surface. Now I'm sure my inventory is almost full as I've been collecting this Blackstone, and start to look at where we can outline that storage system. Alright, so now we're back on the surface after that resource gathering mission, and I realized on the topic of resources that we are going to need so much wood, and as you can see, the bamboo behind me by my little starter shack back there, the little outpost. I was looking over the landscape behind me here, trying to figure out exactly where the storage system can be outlined, and I realized before we even do that, we're going to need to continue some resource gathering, and this will help us get a start on the industrial district. We need a lot of wood, and I think using bamboo, now that in some of the more recent versions of Update, can create bamboo planks that can be then turned into wood, which can turn into chests. So basically what I'm saying is we want to get an automatic system for generating lots of chests, and that's going to be the very first thing we do. And I think the spot that we're going to do it is, where is it? Right over here. Just off to the side, just off to the left, because we're going to be utilizing flying machines. And flying machines can be upwards of 20 blocks long. And if I kind of look at it over here, there's from the kind of the start in this area down the end is easily no more than 20 blocks. And we can kind of pick out multiple sections once we get this thing going, maybe right around, we'll do it first, right around, it's funny, we have this marker block to kind of outline what's below the surface, just around here, right out in here. And we can make it go as far as we need, probably upwards of 40, 50, maybe even 60 blocks, get us out to the river out there. And that will enable a starting point to be able to outline the industrial district, because as we look over here, 20 blocks wide actually is only going to take us, only to a little bit, and we'll still have plenty of more portions to continue to add industrial machines to satisfy our resource gathering and generating needs for the Dark Castle build. But as we say that, that means it's start to get designing and then start to get building. So I think the very first thing we'll do is we'll outline a platform in the dirt section to get an idea of scale and go from there. All right, I think I've made a little bit of a dent getting this hole dug out here. We still have a little ways to go, but now that we got all the sand out of the way, we're kind of down to one equal level. What fun will it be to go ahead and pull out the boom booms and fire a little TNT off to kind of make this process a little faster. And if I remember right down in my lower chest, kind of the valuables, extra stuff chest. Oh yeah, there it is. Look at this. We got plenty of TNT that we can bring up to the surface here and set this stuff off and make a little bit of a bigger dent in things. Now, you may find this hard to believe because as excited as I am to set off the TNTs, I have actually never used, now we saw when I did the pit down there in earlier episodes that I manually set off TNT, but I have never used a redstone dispensing operation to do it, to do kind of like some auto mining. And what I think I'm doing, I checked it out in the testing world, and I think if I'm just 7 or 8 blocks in on either side, the side should be relatively unscathed. If they blow up a little bit, that's not the end of the world. But what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and set up this system, kind of basically a scaffolding on the that will have some dispensers on it, and we'll set up the redstone and drop TNT from above. We'll kind of rain it down into this hole, and we'll set it off in such a way that hopefully it digs this pit just exactly how I want it. And like I said, if it doesn't go exactly the way we planned, that's okay, because it'll make it all that more exciting. But really, what could possibly go wrong around here? Am I right? So I'll continue placing these stones, and we'll be back in a few moments when I have all the redstone contraptions in place. Alright, so not only do I have all the contraptions in place, as you can see behind me, we have a redstone circuit with some delays on it so that each of the TNT droppers will drop kind of in sequence. But I also I got a little carried away and said, well, I did say I'm going to be doing some new redstone. And actually, this is old redstone, but for me, it's the first time. This is an Etho hopper clock, and it's kind of basically the original design, very early design. It really just trades items back and forth, moves this redstone block, and sends a signal into this observer, which will then go around and drop this TNT down there. Now, I haven't primed the TNT yet. I'm going to do that in just a moment. But one of the fun things about playing with TNT droppers is no matter how much you test it, I mean, I've tested it now with very innocuous substances. We've basically tested it with dirt. All the timing seemed to work out. Everything seemed to work out great. But until you actually put the TNT in and then go and flip the switch, you kind of have to cross your fingers and hope it doesn't end in disaster. So I'm going to go ahead and prime all these things up, and then we'll catch you back here as we flip the switch and cross those fingers and see what happens. Alright, I have put 10 TNT in each dropper, so now all there's left to do is to go over to the lever. This lever will start the clock, and then we will get to see what happens down there. And here we go. 3, 2, 1. Flip the switch. The clock is going on, and we'll wait to see when the redstone signal comes off and see what happens. There it goes. There's the first TNT, the second TNT, third. There we go. There we go. Not too bad. Hey, oh, that TNT got knocked over. Okay, good. That's actually pretty good. And we go back again. Perfect timing. Look at how I figured out that timing. That is really nice. I like it. Oh, we want to see the action down there. There it is. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. All right, so no mishaps. Shocking, I know, but we will go ahead and let these 10 TNT each fly down there. We'll see how deep they go, and then kind of move on to the next step of the process. But really what we're doing here is we're emptying out this hole, and now that I'm really looking at it, I wish I could have got a little more on each side, but that's okay. Well, we're getting this hole down to a certain level so that I can have it so the bamboo kind of comes up around this level. I think that level where all those chests are, relative to the giant hole down to the trial chambers, is where we want this bamboo farm to be, so that it can kind of feed in to the dark castle as it gets built around that structure. So we'll continue this going and then see where we are depth-wise and any little extra cleanup we have to do when it's all done. Alright, well, now I've gone ahead and taken down all the redstone and continued to dig down all those sides, trimmed it all up, and flattened it all out at the bottom where I know I need this to kind of make this thing work. And if I just kind of hop on down, as you can see, we have it down here at this kind of my working area level, and down there in the pit is where we have to go next. We got to go down there, and we got to go ahead and put the platform, and all the rails, and all the dirt, and then start the bamboo. And because I can see that we're running out of time for this episode, we're getting near the end at least, I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to do that in the form of a time lapse, and then see where we are at that point. May or may not have time to do the flying machine, which I know I need to make this thing work, but we'll do our best. So let's get ready to get building and get down there and do that time lapse. Alright, well, now that we have the entire field in, wow, look at this last bamboos, they're all growing up really fast, as bamboo does, because it grows super fast. And the next thing to do is to get that flying machine together and make it go from one side to the other so that we can start collecting this bamboo. I also didn't put the rails underneath because that's a little complicated. I'll have to do that before we set this thing off to start the collection system. But as we're running out of time, I think I'm going to go have to check out a flying machine design. We'll get one installed, and that may be where we wrap up today's episode. Alright, well, I've gotten a little ambitious, and I'm down here underneath the soil putting down all these rails, and I'm going to go ahead and do that, and right behind me here, if you can see over my shoulder right there, there's a little exit, and that is right where all of this stuff has to be unloaded by an automatic unloader. There's going to be minecarts coming under here, collecting all of that bamboo, and I got to get it all out on the other end. That's a little more complicated, but just to get things started, we will have at least one minecart come out there at the back, have an unloading system, and then I'll have to make a more complicated unloading system because the volume of bamboo that is going to be coming through here is going to be more than a regular single lane anyway, because you can see I'm going to make this turn here. There's only going to be one minecart. It is going to get filled up almost immediately, well before it traverses the entire side and make it to the unloader. So that could be a problem that I can solve at a different time. But in the meantime, we'll just continue down here, and we'll do the whole thing. We'll test it all out at the very end, and then be prepared to make some improvements. Alright, I have placed all of the rails underneath the farm, and I have a hopper minecart running around those tracks, and as you can see here, I've built a minecart unloader, which will, when the minecart runs around, unload that thing into the chest below. This is just for demonstration purposes, because like we said, this farm, there's the flying machine here, all that bamboo, there's lots of bamboo, it's going to get collected almost immediately, and we're actually going to have to come up with a individual rail system, but we still have to test this thing. So I've hooked up a switch, and we have the bamboo ready to go. All we have to do is 3, 2, 1, and away it goes. There goes the flying machine, and it looks like everything's working, including my frames, because that's a lot of bamboo. But so far, so good. Everything seems stable, and the machine is just going down to the end. Now, what it's going to do, I have to turn off this side before I forget. When it comes back, it'll stop here. But in the meantime, let's make sure, there we go, the flap hit, and it's on its way back. Perfect. All right, well, that means that it's at least working, and assuming when it gets to this end, it stops. The minecart, it will continue to go around underneath, and when it comes to this rail, it will stop because it detects that it's full. It will unload all of that. Whoa, 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 look out. Bamboo flying. Whoa, over my head. It's okay. All right, what we're going to have to do is probably put a wall. I just know there's plenty of bamboo. Look at this. I'm already full inventory just from standing back here. Yeah, so that's a lot. So yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. We certainly did get a lot done. We gathered all the Blackstone that we're going to need, or at least a lot of it, for the Dark Castle main building here at the location. We got our industrial district started with this bamboo farm. I do need to make a couple improvements to it. We'll do that between episodes. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.